Breaking news, another step forward for the Oakland A's in their push to move to Las Vegas. The Nevada State Assembly has passed a new version of a bill to provide $380 million in public funding for a ballpark for the Oakland A's. Good evening. I'm Greg Lee.
And I'm Christina Rendon. Let's get right to that breaking news. These public funds would be used toward a $1.5 billion stadium for the A's on the Las Vegas Strip. The Nevada Independent reports some additional amendments were approved. They're focused on boosting community support, such as youth sports clinics and money for low-income housing. Lawmakers spoke out in support of this measure, which they say would bring big financial benefits to the state of Nevada.
But this is something that all Nevadans can take part in, and I really appreciate the organization coming to us with their community benefits agreement, and I think this is going to be a real boon for Las Vegas. I proudly support this bill.
Once the bill's amendments are reconciled by the state Senate, which is expected tonight, it will then go to Nevada Governor Joe Lombardo to sign. We'll bring in KTVU's Joe Fonzie. You've been following the developments here, Joe. This is pretty stunning. The A's still have to put up quite a bit of money. Does the math add up here?
No, that's the big thing. And also, I would question what we heard that legislator say in terms of looking at the A's track record here. But the math, you're right, is the big issue. Number one, $380 million of public money provided. The cost to build the stadium, $1.5 billion. So the first question I would ask is where's that money going to come from? Obviously, naming rights are one way that some of it gets financed, but is the same person who came to the Nevada legislature with his hand out now going to provide the difference there? That's the first question I would ask. The other thing I would ask is that $380 million is based on the conception that there will be 81 sellouts at a 30,000-seat stadium. And that still comes up short of the $380 million, and they're saying that there will be other activities that will finance that. The number of activities that they're talking about, you'd have to average 80,000 people per activity in a 30,000-seat stadium. So the math doesn't work in that way. The other thing I would ask about the sellouts as well. Are you going to have a team that has been in the rivalry this year for potentially the worst record in the history of modern baseball? Is that team going to sell out 81 times, or are you going to spend money that you haven't been willing to spend on players here and bring that team there, and all of a sudden they're going to produce sellouts? I would ask that question if I were them as well. Not to mention the fact that the lease in Oakland runs out one more year, and they're saying that that stadium is going to be built in time for the 2028 season. So where are they going to play in the meantime? There are just so many questions. We haven't even talked about environmental impact reports. We haven't talked about potential lawsuits that can potentially spring up in Nevada. So there are a lot of hoops to still jump through. If I were a Nevada legislator, I would want to have those questions answered before I ever okayed any public money. I don't know if they have answers to those yet.
Yeah, well, Joe, on that note, as you said, this is a big step, but we want to be clear. There are many other steps ahead. So what other hurdles remain just to get this thing forward? Well,
I think another thing that needs to be considered is you need 3/4 approval by the other owners. And here we're talking math again. The fee for an expansion franchise is considerably higher than the relocation fee, which the Commissioner of Baseball has already said they're willing to waive the relocation fee. So while the other owner is going to be willing to divide that money by 30, are they going to be willing to, actually 29 if you're not including the A's into the equation, are they going to be willing to take far less money of a relocation fee instead of potentially using Las Vegas as an expansion site? And now, let's say they decide to do that, the legislature has now kind of greased the skids for that to happen. What if the A's current ownership is left out in the cold and Major League Baseball decides they would like an expansion team there instead? So I agree with you. Obviously, these things move forward slowly. If we think about the things that have been done here, the Warriors in San Francisco, there were a lot of baby steps that had to happen before it ultimately got done. But the one thing that they were committed to was spending enough money to make that happen. And I think it's a fair question to ask, is current A's ownership willing to spend the money to go through all those hoops that it's going to take, and it's going to be a heck of a lot more money than they're talking about today.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall in these owners' meetings. I'm really curious to see or hear what they thought of last night's game. Joe, you were there. Can you describe the emotion, the feeling inside that ballpark?
You know, for the fans who really feel like they are so misrepresented, you know, they've taken a lot of heat for the fact that, you know, the A's have had one of the lowest attendance in baseball in recent years. And they have very good reason for that. You know, if you look at all the factors that have been contributed to that, every time someone gets to be a star player, and they were sold on the fact that as soon as we get our new stadium, we're going to keep those players. Every time somebody gets to be a star, you buy the jersey, they trade the guy. They increased the price of season tickets, almost doubling them. The ownership has spoken poorly about the stadium continually. So, of course, attendance is going to be down. But, you know, you don't have to look back very far. The Oakland Coliseum, and we all admit it's a dated facility. It needs to be replaced. The Oakland Coliseum used to be a really hip place to be in the times when the A's had winning ball clubs, appeared in 3 consecutive World Series. Now, that was some time ago. But you put good players in the stadium, people will come. And you know, there's no question about the fact that the A's need an updated facility. But they are good fans. They might even be the most loyal fans in baseball to go through all of this and still organize the kind of thing that they did last night.
Yeah, you got to feel for the fans. All right, Joe Fonzie, for that insight, thank you so much for the reporting.